Well, hello, Hugh.
Hi,
It's been
Greg.
another week, and we have a lot of pretty interesting things to talk about. But unfortunately, it's not all good news. And I was just, you were just telling me about some terrible things they're doing to you. And when we looked it up, I said, oh my gosh. This week you were poisoned with bleach. And to the average person that just comes on and they don't know your story, they're going to say, this is crazy. But I want people to listen. Okay, bleach equals 22 in gematria. So for all the people who use gematrinator and all that, bleach equals 22. Well, what's so significant about 22 is that today's date leaves 22 days left in the year. And this just happened today. Now, and also bleach equals 131. And you got a suspicious letter in the mail today from somebody named John White. And John White equals, guess what? 131. It's insane. It's like everything goes together, and we can prove this mathematically for anybody that's doubting the story. Now, Hugh, here's another interesting thing going on in the news today. There is this Pensacola shooting, and I'm going to read the headline from Fox News. NAS Pensacola shooting presumed to be terrorism. Saudi student recorded an attack on video, officials say. And then when I scroll down, it says the name of this guy is Mohammed, and get this, this is amazing, Al Shamrani. Okay, he's a sham.
That's who George Bush blamed for 9/11 was Ronnie and his family who owned the fast forward video stores. He said that they hired my friends the Voss family down in Pensacola on the Gulf to train Muslims.
Yeah,
and all they do is fly paper clubs.
I was going to build that up a little bit so people could really absorb that. What you're actually saying here is a huge 9/11 proof that they're, making this whole 9/11 thing up. Okay, and I don't mean that they didn't actually kill people; they did. But I am saying that the lies that are involved with it are right here involved in today's shooting and how it all goes together. So I want you just to explain that again so people really get this. Okay, Mohammed al-Shamrani is a shooter in Pensacola. And let's tie that to 9/11 again. Say that. Let's just say that real slow.
On 9/11, my girlfriend put George Bush in a kindergarten class with my uncle, Mr. Mills, who filmed him for worldwide TV as 9/11 happened. And Bush, there's a video in my videos on Facebook. Anybody can look at Hugh Francis Squire on Facebook and find a video of George Bush saying my name as the first plane hit the first towers. He said, Hugh's structures are collapsing. He said my name. And my girlfriend was online with me on a Yahoo chat with the Voss family, with Debbie Voss and Veronica Rapanti. As Bush says my name, the first plane hits the towers. And then the next video that they made, George Bush said that fast forward video store owners paid my friends, the Voss family, on the Gulf Ocean down in Florida to train 12 Muslims to fly the planes into the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and the non-existent plane in Pennsylvania and at the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm. And so here they are blaming another
Muslim. And the owner of the fast forward video store was Ronnie.
And here's this
and
guy.
This guy's name is Ronnie Sham.
Yeah.
And this whole shooting down there is to cover for Barr and what he said when he was first appointed to office in videos 2 months ago. So they're using the same con from 9/11, and if they're training foreign pilots on a Navy base to fly jets, and they've been doing that for a long time. Yet George Bush on 9/11 said my name and then blamed a band I was publishing who owned fast forward video stores for 9/11. Interesting con from two different presidents 30 years apart. Or 20. This is 20 years.
Huge. If people understand what you just said, it blows 9/11 out of the water. Just that one thing. And there's a million things that you can say about 9/11, but that's just one more thing. If they just understand that one thing, they'll see the con. They'll see this big picture that we're building up to for the next video, and they'll see that how the government really works.
Yeah, 9/11 wasn't about New York or New Yorkers, yet you keep electing New Yorkers who are lying to the entire world, and really dumb New Yorkers like Giuliani. And de Blasio wanted to run to be president. And de Blasio's a Russian man who took my lead guitar or my bass guitar player's name as he died, Tony de Blasio, who was born in the Bronx.
Yeah, what are the chances that this guy de Blasio, that's not his real name, is going to call himself the name of your band?
Well, it's all the 9/11 cover-up. And like I keep saying, 9/11 was not about New York or New Yorkers. It was about worldwide theft of my business and probably a few other businesses like mine, but nobody's like me. George Bush used me as ground zero on 9/11.
That number 9/11 keeps getting used over and over and over again, from the assassination of Garfield to 11/9 was the date of the death of Kaiser Wilhelm II before Hitler took over. This number just keeps repeating itself over and over in history. Proof that it's just not just a coincidence. You know, they're using this number. These are contrived events.
Yeah, well, my family ran the military bases back in World War II, and prior to that, and in Korea and in Vietnam. And I'm actually the 10-4 codes. When I was kidnapped by the governors on Hoover Street, and Hoover was your FBI director, and I lived right on Hoover Street, my phone number was LI 49104. And if you break that down, that's 10-4, the 10-4 codes.
And we just got another 10-4 just today. And in that letter that you got from to John White, which was nobody.
I don't want to show my address here.
No. I don't want to do that.
I'll show and this was postmark today. I'm sorry, I had a little trouble here with my mic grabbing this letter. I'm going to just cover my address because I don't need more people trying to assassinate me. But there's John White.
Right.
As I'm sitting on the John with white stool bleeding for 3 days, I get a letter from John White. And then up here, up here it comes from Triple J, and there's no John White at my home. And Triple J at Eagle Point, Oregon. And Janet Barclay was my secretary, and it's 11-3.
And Eagle Point is your 10-4 you were just talking about.
Yeah, well, Eagle Point is even more than that. I grew up with the Eagles. I went to a church with the Eagles and Joe Walsh. At St. Anne's, Joe Walsh was the head priest, and Joe Walsh was the lead singer at the Eagles. This is and the street address is 11-3 ONYS, and my wife Nancy. They're asking me what the address is. ON Nancy. They dismembered Nancy. They cut her leg off.
The address is 113. Bleach also equals 131. John White equals 131. The address is 113, and John White also equals 112, which is one away from 113 as well. All these numbers go together so perfectly well.
11-3, and that's what I told you to worry about with the San Francisco Bridge was 11-3. When I met you 5 or 6 months ago, I said, don't worry about 9/11, worry about 11-3. They always use 11-3 and 11-4 in my life because I was kidnapped at 4.
Yeah.
And then 11 has a real big significance in my life that I'm not going to go into right now today. Sure. 11-3. And 9/11, I was ground zero on 9/11. 2 Bush family presidents, they used me as ground zero. One set it up and the other one finished it off.
Now, so we've already said 2 amazing things today, folks. And now and there's just more to it. You wanted to talk more about the Confederate farm and the Civil War connection.
Well, when I was a little kid, I met Rosa Parks. And it's not coincidence that when the police, I was kidnapped by a governor from Alabama. His family helped kidnap me when I was 4 in 1957. And that governor and the former governor of Michigan, and three other governors, they tortured and raped me, and they killed little kids. And L. Brooks Patterson knew this. He was sitting out in front of the house they were doing it in on Hoover Street. And L. Brooks Patterson is dead now. He died hiding my truth of the Oakland County child killers. Him and the Oakland County, his staff at the task force there in Oakland County, they were sitting outside the house where the kids were murdered and where I was tortured in 57. And this is 7 years before they murdered Kennedy. And the very same 5 governors framed Oswald after Ruby shot him. And I was renting SSC from Jack Ruby at the Carousel. And I'm running it with Dell. And you got Delos and what was that movie? Yul Brynner, Westworld. Peter Fonda, Yul Brynner, Harry Croft, who in later movies became Laura Croft. I mean, all of this has to do with my life and L. Brooks Patterson's cover-up of the Oakland County child killings.
At some point, people are going to have to start, if they're listening to these stories of yours, they're going to have to start asking questions like, why does Hugh know Rosa Parks? Why does Hugh know the Koch brothers, John Bolton? Why does he know all
the
these
Barr family?
names?
Donald Trump appointed Barr, Mr. Bolton, and even Kavanaugh to hide my truth of the Oakland County child killings. And the people behind the Oakland County child killings are the very people who murdered Kennedy. And all the presidents since Kennedy was murdered have been hiding my truth and paying L. Brooks Patterson and his task force in Oakland County to hide my truth. And Kavanaugh is a part of that. The Barr family is a part of that. The Stone family is a part of that. The Bolton family is a part of that. I built an airplane with the Bolton family as you got Bob Bolton singing on the radio. And this is years and years ago. This is when Epstein and Trump were kids running around and playing the big man because my family made a show called Welcome Back, Kotter that marked Epstein. And this is where Epstein got his start with Trump and the Prince Andrews. And Prince Andrews is my cousin. As I live with the Jackson family, and they give me a key to a Virgin Island home.
And isn't that interesting what you were telling me, that Trump doesn't know the prince, but the prince never says he doesn't know Trump, does he?
Yeah, no, well, if Trump doesn't know the prince, why doesn't Prince Andrews go on the royal radio and say, I don't know Donald Trump? You know, I mean, and you're laughing, but it's truth. I mean, you got to look at the whole picture.
When you look at the whole picture,
well, now, probably the Queen or
you'll hear in the news tomorrow just because you said it.
Prince Charles will have him come up and say, "Oh, I don't know Donald Trump either."
Yeah, and it's true. It's true. You'll probably hear that in the news tomorrow.
And then my Prince Charles is my cousin through Admiral Byrd. So is the Queen. So is Princess Diana. I'm the cousins to all the royalty in Europe, including Swerdlow if he's a Russian king's son. And all of them are hiding my truth of the Oakland County child killings. And the Oakland County child killers are those 5 governors' families who kidnapped me out of my father's home and then tortured me and murdered kids chained next to me. My own twin was murdered and dumped in a Pennsylvania field, and it's still an unsolved murder with Timmy King and the rest of the Oakland County child killings. The FBI arrested me as Timmy King was murdered, and they detained me for Jimmy Hoffa's murder after Whitey sold me a car, but I'm not in any movie. And Tony Tocco and Miller, I bought Miller a house, and the FBI, he wrote a book, and the FBI even told the world they found Hoffa's blood in Miller's house. Well, Tony Tocco and Miller worked for me and Dell as they were making the movie Westworld. And I told you about John West and another West in a post last week. That's the Chippendale dancers, the male dancers that get naked for the women in Detroit, and we're on Channel 50 with Bill Kennedy at the movies. Well, they billed the Kennedys back when I was a little kid. They made Westworld, and John West from the Chippendale dancers told me he was going to steal everything I had. And they have done that. They stole my trademark, my life, my name. They murdered the Kennedys, and then they staged 9/11 and hid the theft of the largest publishing company on earth, bottom line, and I'm the owner of it. As Ventura and Alex Jones and Jesse Ventura and Julian Assange hid me, and all of them are operatives for a con. Jones, Julian Assange, Jesse Ventura, they're operatives, and they fed you controlled disinformation to hide my truth of the Oakland County child killings and other things like 9/11.
And just before I started talking to you, Hugh, somebody was I'd posted one of your stories there about Alex Jones, and somebody was trying to argue with me and saying that, you know, Jones revealed this and revealed that and revealed this. And what I really want to get through to people is that word disinformation that you keep saying.
Well, Jones is my own cousin through the Walker family, and Walker walked Oswald into Ruby's gun. Nowadays they tell you Tipton or some other detective, but Walker was right there, and Walker was Cheyenne Bodie, and his mother was Mrs. Jones. So Alex Jones in my life has always been disinformation. And he used my chalk drawing of my little daughter crying that the Gardner and Cook family made to say this is the proof of 9/11, as Bush said my name on 9/11, and then lied about the little kid I was publishing on 9/11, as they stole $2 trillion in entertainment contracts.
Yeah, so if somebody thinks he has any truth, he literally stole some of the stuff, that picture from you. And
yeah, exactly. Cook and Gardner are my family. And
so
Cook,
when you say words like disinformation, you're trying to say that disinformation doesn't mean that there's no truth at all in what he says. It's that they're taking the real information and guiding you in the wrong direction with it.
Correct. Yeah, that's really my family, Cook and Gardner. And it was about my daughter's rape and murder, and not murder, her kidnap off her school bus at 7 by the Cooper family. And Alex Jones got all that information from Cooper after the state police shot Cooper in his driveway because they had kidnapped my daughter at 7 off her school bus. And Alex Jones and Ventura, they want the truth of Kennedy and Hoffa, but I am the truth, and none of them will interview me, as they use my stolen trademark bottom line worldwide in 244 countries.
That's your clue right there, America. Okay, that they're disinformation. If they wanted to tell
anybody
they lived right next to you, they know the story.
Anybody can Google Mr. Walker, who was on Star Trek. He was an actor on Star Trek, the original TV series that my mother's friends made the Star Trek series. Harv Bennett and his friends. They would have dinner with my mother at our home, the Bennett family. And that goes back to Tony Bennett, and I'm a publisher. I was Tony Bennett's publisher. You got Star Trek, and I'm Hugh of Borg. Fuller Transmissions owned Borg Warner. I'm Hugh. For me, it's a no-brainer. The rest of the world doesn't know it because they didn't tell you. The actor, you can Google the actor who just died yesterday. His name is Walker. That's my cousin. Cheyenne Bodie, Clint Walker. That's my cousin. You can go to Indiana to Squire Boone Caverns. Well, Clint Walker played Daniel Boone, and I'm Baby Huey, and I went to church with the Disney family, and they wrote songs for my publishing company to publish. And this company, bottom line, was stolen by DuPont, who was Hulk Hogan, Jesse Ventura, The Rock, all the wrestlers used my stolen trademark. At the same time, every lawyer in the country used my stolen trademark to pass the bar exam in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And it goes on and on. It was the biggest theft this world has ever known. I had 28,000 worldwide entertainment contracts stolen from me in 1969, 70 by DuPont and Claire Cummins. Cummins is the diesel engine. Sylvia Cummins went to jail for raping little boys at knife point. She would take a butcher knife and cut them and then rape them. Sylvia Cummins. That's a Cummins engine in a truck, and I'm the Fuller transmission in a truck. That's my family.
Yeah.
Walker in the Star Trek movie is my cousin.
And
his mother is Jones.
Movies. It's no wonder like that.
His mother is Mrs. Jones. And anybody, you know, and Alex Jones fed off of my daughter's kidnap, took my family's chalk drawing. As Bush gave you the story that Hugh's structures are collapsing 20 years after they stole my trademark Bottom Line and gave it to the lawyers bar to use in Hollywood. It's just a joke to me that people, Julian Assange is a pedophile who ran away from his court date in Switzerland. They call him a truther. I don't. I call him a pedophile. Just because the Swiss government dropped the charges 50 years later doesn't mean he's not a pedophile. He ran away. Mm-hmm. Other people ran away. Who was that? In Hollywood, you had Woody. What was his name? He was... I won't even go into that. But you've had other Hollywood producers back during that same period did the same thing Julian Assange did, and they still can't come back in the country. I can't remember his name. Roman Polanski, for instance. He did the same thing, raped a little girl. He raped, Mia Farrow's daughter, and then he ran away from his court date, and he still can't come back into the country. Roman Polanski, a movie maker. Well, that's who Julian Assange is. He raped some little kids. He was scheduled to go to court over it, and he ran away, and he stood in another country in a little building for the past 50 years, supposedly giving you truth. And that's the biggest con there ever was. He didn't give you no truth. He gave you controlled information. So did Ventura. So did Alex Jones. And until people get it through their heads, you've been conned by your own CIA and government and a force above them. This came from a force above your own CIA.
You think
and
that.
All these people have profited off of 9/11, selling you T-shirts and coffee cups and hiding my truth of the Oakland County child killers, the 5 governors who really killed Oswald and the Kennedy family.
And this force is the big con you're going to reveal here in the next video. And it's not the Illuminati.
Whether or not people believe me or not, people won't even believe me over this Alex Jones. It'll be a big fight in Julian Assange. There's no denying Julian Assange raped a minor. He ran away from his court date, and then America made him his truth. And imagine this. Greg, go out and rape your next door neighbor and then run away to another country, seek asylum, and then you can be my truth. That's how dumb Americans are. And they're played like a fiddle by people like Alex Jones and Julian Assange, and they're paid disinformation, telling you they're truthers. At the same time, your media is disinformation. So you got this double wall. You got CNN and Fox and CBS telling you they're the truth, and they're not. They're controlled information off the AP coming from the CIA and the FBI and the police. And then you got the truthers, people like Julian Assange, who are escaped rapists from another country, and all of a sudden they're your truth. Oh, he raped little kids in Sweden, and that matters. That really matters. I don't want my truth from a guy who raped little kids in Sweden. Mm-hmm. He's controlled disinformation, and he has been. I lived across the street from on Julian Street from Mary Miller, and Mr. Miller wrote a book and said he killed Hoffa, and that's some more controlled information. And that could take us into who just made a movie for Fox? Who was just in Michigan with a movie about Jimmy Hoffa? Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Scorsese. Oh, Kennedy was in the Navy, Scorsese. My torture as a child of 4 and by 5 governors was to rip the tendons out of my thighs and make me stay on my knees all day. De Niro. Okay. As you get your truth from an AA meeting guy who I sponsored, what's his name? Glenn Beck.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. I'm forced to go to AA because they drugged my food while I was driving my semi. They put me in jail for 6 months, made me go to AA without a blood test, tell me I'm a drunk, as they drugged my food, raped me again.
It's unreal. It's unreal.
And I buy Miller a house, and there's a spot of Hoffa's blood in it. And on Julian Street, Julian Assange. Julian asked Angie. Angie lived across the street from me, and she was the girl in the Stones song, Angie. After the Stones come across from London, from my queen, and sang to you, who killed the Kennedys? After all, it was me and Hugh. He said my name. The Who come over here and said, send me a line. I'm the line. I'm bottom line. And all my neighbors stole my trademark, bottom line. Claire Cummins, DuPont. I was born in Detroit. I'm the son of presidents. And this has been a cover-up since 1953. Rosa
People
Parks,
need to understand how much the entertainment industry is centered around Detroit. For heaven's sakes, Star Wars was filmed on your property in Detroit, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it wasn't filmed, it was cast. The last Star Wars movie was cast in my old house on Isabel Street in Troy. I built that house when I was 17 on Isabel as they stole the paintings out of my aunt's Isabella Gardner Museum, where Kennedy was born. And there's still a $1 million reward, $25 million reward for the return of the paintings that were stolen. Another unsolved thing in my life, but nobody interviews me. I'm the Gardner family. I'm Fuller Transmissions family. I'm Jackson on your 20. I really am these things, and they want you to think I'm crazy, and I'm not. Little Timmy King in Oakland County was thrown dead on my properties as the FBI detained me for Jimmy Hoffa's murder. And there's no lie in that. I'm not in any book. Scorsese, De Niro, and Al Pacino. Well, Al in my life was a detective in charge of protecting me after Osbourne poisoned my food and stole my car and left me for dead, and stole an airplane at an airport in Michigan.
Yeah, think about all these times that they have.
Al Pacino, Al Pacino, Al Akers. Then you got Taxi, little dwarf like Al Akers was, who was screwing my wife as I went to school. And then when I moved out here to the West Coast after my wife was dismembered and murdered, 2 of them, on the Manning Ranch, you got Uber, and I'm Hubert. No H and no T. And Victoria, my dismembered, murdered wife, her first husband was Tom, and I'm Hugh, and they attempted to murder me again. And then when they couldn't, they murdered Huey Hewson, the cab driver in Medford. And up at the VA hospital, my family, Jackson, donated the land for the university and the hospital, and it just happens to be a hospital, a VA hospital, where they trained Mrs. Ford to be a doctor. She was the first doctor in Skull and Bones to graduate from the VA hospital in Portland, where Barr just was hiding Barr went up to Portland and put his arm around a policeman, and he says, you better respect policemen in this country. If you don't, we're going to take your money away. And my answer to Mr. Barr is people earn my respect. I don't give it freely. And I definitely don't give it freely to people like Mr. Barr, who are treasonous and are hiding my truth of Oakland County child killings and the murder of your president for the past 55 years. That's right. And I know this because the Barr family lived next door to me in Oakland County, Michigan. And Mrs. Barr fed her real husband to alligators in the family basement. And all those stories disappeared just before Trump made him your attorney general. And gee, I have 4 dismembered, raped, murdered wives on the Manning Ranch. And they told me that dismembered, missing legs, dismembered, missing ears, dismembered, missing teeth are natural causes on all 4 death certificates. I needed an attorney general to look into the murders of my wives on a Civil War ranch. And now I don't have one because the Barr family is Kathy O'Brien and Roseanne Barr, and they made a career in Hollywood out of hiding my truth of the Oakland County child killings with L. Brooks Patterson, my other neighbor on Hoover Street in Oakland County. I'm the truth of your president's murder and a whole lot more. And everybody, all media denies I exist. The media, Greg, you know, WJR in Detroit is run by the Osbourne family, the very family that kidnapped me at 4 in 1957 and then framed Lee Harvey Oswald. And gee, the Graham family owns Detroit news media and Detroit talk radio. The Graham family, Peter Graham, Senator Graham, they own it. And guess who's head of WJR News Talk? Marie Osbourne.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. And who's Trump's best friend in the Republican Senate? Senator Graham, who owns Channel 4. And they come from Billy Graham. Oh, and I own Baker College at birth, where they get their degrees to be ministers, Baptist ministers. It's on Hughes Street in Oakland County, and my family owned it the day I was born. And the day Rosa Parks moved to Detroit and said hi to me. There's a Rosa Parks Boulevard. She come up right to me on a street named after her, put her arm around me and said hello. And when she was arrested in Huey P. Long's state, Montgomery, Alabama, I think that's where Huey P. Long was from, and Long is one of the governors that kidnapped and tortured me in 57. The Long family with Wallace and Osbourne and Anderson and Nicholson, all of them were governors' families.
And there's a Wallace right
Kavanaugh
there
was
on,
running.
Fox News.
Kavanaugh was running to be mayor of Oakland County, mayor of, and then governor of Michigan. Kavanaugh, the very guy Trump appointed. Bolton, I built a plane with the Bolton family as people got Bob Bolton on the radio singing songs to him. I built a plane with Mr. Bolton's family. Barr lived on the same street I did in Oakland County. Okay. Stone illegally cut the bone out of my foot pretending to be a doctor. Trump appointed Kavanaugh, and my father in 57 told me Kavanaugh and his kids were a bunch of crooks. My father never lied to me. He was a Navy SEAL. I think he knew what he was talking about. My uncle was Admiral Byrd. So I have, and I voted for Mr. Trump, hoping he would tell the truth of my story. He promised he would, and he promised that he would not make me pay for the murder of babies anymore. And all of these things matter. I'm the truth of your president's murder. And these
Attorney
people.
General Barr, you take the Barr exam, which stole the trademark bottom line.
Right. Yeah. You study out of the bottom line to pass the bar exam. And
the Attorney General.
And now they stopped. Now they took the bottom line down and they renamed it as something else. And you've seen the documents I have on that, Greg. As soon as I said that in a video after my last wife's murder in 2016, they took the bottom line bar exam down. But it's been there for the past 60 years.
See how they respond real fast to what he says on TV?
They remove any proof, but I still have my records. It's just interesting, Greg.
Another part of the con in 9/11, talking about how Bush was still may still be up to things. We saw this uranium dump in the Detroit River right next to the island where one of your wives was murdered.
Yeah.
And
my 5 black men, they chained her to a post and dismembered her and brutally raped her.
Right there is where this uranium dump happened, where it fell.
Detroit River, that's right. And gee, who owns the fresh water in South America? George Bush again. Oh, so it would be to his benefit to dump uranium into the Nestle drinking water, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And of course, we can't prove that, but it's, we can see the connections, how it could be feasible that they could do something like that.
It's always real obvious.
Yeah,
To me, it's real obvious.
poison the competitors like Nestle and make people suspicious that their water might be contaminated while we're selling water from South America and in turn
Through the Bush family.
through the Bush
And
family.
that's his style, because on 9/11 he said that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, which he said were cyanide, and George Bush, his family makes it down there in Pensacola, where you just had the sham of Ronnie shooting soldiers. It's real interesting how the Bush family is always right there. And now Trump took that legacy over. And they're telling you it's Joe Biden's legacy, and it's not. It was my legacy on 9/11.
I'm really frustrated by how deeply we've bought the con that George Bush is just this great, wonderful guy. Most people think he's just this great Christian man. And of course, you know, the first George Bush was a veteran, and they're just all these wonderful people, you know, worked in the CIA. And I've had people in my church tell me that, and I just about went through the roof in my mind, you know, just unbelievable. Like, how in the world can you believe this con this deeply and not even know? If only they could just listen to what you're saying right now, they would never have any brain.
People are in a box, and especially the kids, they haven't been taught the history of their own country, even the wars. They say Vietnam wasn't a war, it was a police action, yet they re-enabled the draft for the Vietnam War. They couldn't re-enable a draft for a police action. A complete baloney they teach the kids in school. And there's not much the average parent can do about that other than start voting for the people who didn't kill the Kennedys, and you've elected the people who did kill the Kennedys, and you continue to do so. You're electing the next generation of the same families to be your servants, and they're destroying your country. They've already destroyed it.
Now, you had some recordings that you wanted to go over that you had put some thoughts into, and you had 50 recording numbers, 53 and 41. We'll start with those, and you had a few more.
What was it, 41?
41 and 53.
Yeah, these are notes I make with my attorney, and they murdered my attorney, but this is an old recorder. They murdered my attorney as they dismembered and murdered my wife, and they put my wife's ears were missing, and the attorney general and the doctor in the hospital said missing ears was natural causes, and there wasn't nothing wrong with my wife's ears. And they've done that, and the murders of 4 of my wives has been natural causes as they were dismembered, raped, and murdered on the Manning Ranch. And this is important in the picture of the big con. 41, I don't even know what these are about. Is that the number you said, 41?
Yeah, that's the number.
I hope you can hear this. And then this is the recorder I used with my murdered attorney. And he was filing murder charges for my wife. And they murdered him as he went to the DA's office.
What year was this?
2011, Halloween day.
Okay.
His name was Jim Bauman, and he was my secretary's brother, Janet Barclay's brother.
9/11 wasn't about New York or New Yorkers. It was about worldwide trade and money stolen worldwide. New Yorkers like Giuliani and Trump and the rest of these media and criminal people are capitalizing in New York off of 9/11, and 9/11 was not about New York.
And this is Giuliani and Ventura and Alex Jones and Julian Assange, all the disinformation hiding my truth. And okay, that was 41, and then you said what number?
53.
And these were recordings I made for my attorney, but my attorney's been murdered. 53 goes with the series of them. Do you know the numbers, 53?
And 54 and 55?
So 3 of them in a row, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, here's 53.
Important to safety and enhanced smiles. Many are unaware of the most
Garrett and Obama had sent me Clinton's computers right from the FBI with their emails on them prior to being caught having the emails on her private computers. And these computers come from 4 or 5 of her workers and they would mail me the computers, and they said FBI right on them. And then I would resell them, and Garrett was buying them, and then accusing me of they didn't work, and they worked. There was nothing wrong with them. And then he would send them back, and then he'd expect me to send them back to him. And they were hiding these computers in the White House by mailing them to my business at eBay. And I have no doubt of that, because I've been used in this con that hides the real truth of John F. Kennedy's murder all my life. Now, when I refused to return the computers a second time without the White House giving me postage, because there was absolutely nothing wrong with the computers, and this is the third time they had done that to me, then at that point, my wife's throat was slit on Halloween Day, and my attorney was murdered as he went to the district attorney to file murder charges. And this is the truth of Tom Garrett and CBS, hiding the truth of Kennedy. And I was living right on the Manning Ranch as they gave the world the con of Bradley Manning.
And see, Tom Garrett was White House press secretary under Obama, right in the White House when they murdered my wife. And they broke into my house, and they would take these computers and hard drives they could find, and they would steal them, and then they would smash them with hammers. And all of these computers and hard drives were marked top secret FBI.
Unreal. And you've been saying the same thing for a long time. It's not like you just came out with all this yesterday. This is from 2000.
No, I've been saying this, and my attorney was Mr. Bauman in Greenville, Tennessee, and he was on his way to file murder charges, and these were things I was talking to him about, and these were the notes from my meetings with him as they dismembered and murdered my wife.
Bauman, and they had dismembered connection to Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, Rush Limbaugh murdered my brother-in-law, Earl's son, Mark Mothersbaugh. And that's who Joe Biden's talking about and his legacy. Now they're saying Joe Biden's the legacy and making fun of his speech about kids in his lap and Holloway and Earl. Well, Earl was my father-in-law. And Holloway, I went to school with him. He owns Holloway Trucking in Michigan. And Joe Biden was making fun of me. The Roaches is... I divorced my wife who ran away with 6 lesbian witches. Yeah. I divorced her and wouldn't let her back in my house. They were selling marijuana. And 50 years ago, marijuana was almost a life sentence in jail. And she was using my vehicles in my house to sell marijuana with lesbian witches. I put a stop to it. And that's what Joe Biden's talking about. He's trying to make me hide and cower over my truth of 9/11 and Kennedy's murder and the Oakland County child killings. And my own family member, that family has been going to bed with my oldest brother's wife for 30 years behind my brother's back as he went to work building nuclear power reactors, power generators as a tin knocker. For General Electric, the same as I work for General Electric. So Joe Biden is just trying to, I'm the son of presidents. All the people on your money are my relatives, Jackson, and even Lincoln. My great-grandmother was sitting with Lincoln as the actor Booth shot him, and isn't that coincidence? An actor shot him, and then in my life, they take my trademark and use it for the attorney bar in Hollywood as they make movies marking me, only I never exist. They steal the truth from me, like Alex Jones in my chalk drawing, and they tell you a lie, and I never exist. Or like Tony Tocco, who worked for me at the Carousel and Shelby Service, and Miller at the Carousel, and so they write books after the fact, and they had nothing to do with Hoffa's murder. And they're hiding me in their books and movies, and I am the real truth. Now, that was 53, and Tom Garrett at CBS, and CBS covered Kennedy's assassination. Walter Cronkite and Barbara Walters, and Joe Biden, his family's been living with the Walters' wife. sleeping with her behind my brother's back for 30 years as he worked. That's the Walters family and Joe Biden and Whitey Bulger. And this is Hazelton. And I didn't, when they arrested Rosa Parks, oh, the police tag is my birthday. Remember?
Yeah.
753. I'm born July 4th, 53. They gave her a tag of 753 as the Long family was raping me in Osbourne's basement.
Yeah, her Rosa Parks mugshot. Yeah.
Yeah. And then here's 54 now.
Smell something. Today's November brought to you by the U.S. Department 15th, 2019. I'm listening to Marie Osbourne station, WJR. And Osbourne is who kidnapped me as a child and killed all the Oakland County child kids. And then they give me Marie Osbourne on Detroit radio. She's supposed to be the real truth in the news. And then they tell me today that Scorsese and De Niro, who marked my kidnap and torture, made a new Hoffa movie that I'm not in once again. And my question is, why do Scorsese, De Niro, Harv Bennett, Star Trek, Sandra Locke, and Anderson, and Clint Eastwood,
NBC, ABC, Ventura, Julian Assange,
deny I exist for 66
all
years.
of the media, all the truthers are lies, all of them.
Kennedy and 9/11, and they're
Controlled
hiding my truth
disinformation.
after killing all those kids on my Oakland County properties in 1957.
And that was made in 2019. 9 years after my lawyer's murder, and Osbourne's still running WJR. And who owns WJR? The Graham family. Who's Trump's best friend? Senator Graham. Put it all together. Controlled disinformation from the Graham family all over Detroit, hiding my truth of the Oakland County child killings, Lee Harvey Oswald, Hoffa, JFK, and his brother's murders.
I was thinking also
with all run by the Graham family, and I stopped Hank's drugs, and on Channel 4, owned by Graham, you have helped me, Hank.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The very drugs I stopped that Kiki Camarino and Robert Tosh Plumley were running with the entire Senate, including the Graham family. Illegal guns and drugs out of the Senate. And Graham is running WJR, employing Marie Osbourne and Gordon Guy. I went to Gordon J. Warner School, and they're making fun of this little 4-year-old kid, me, for the past 66 years as they hide from you the real truth of Oakland County murders, connected to JFK's murder, connected to 9/11, connected to Hoffa's murder. And this is the biggest con the world has ever known. And Senator Graham is behind all of it.
Yeah, think about that for a minute, folks.
Okay, that was 55. Now did you say 56?
Yeah, no, you said you want to do 53, 54, and I thought you said you had something about the name Hubbard on 55, but I could be wrong.
On WJR, the largest news radio talk show in Detroit, Osbourne, the family that kidnapped me, introduces Guy Gordon. Hi, I'm Marie Osbourne. Welcome to the Guy Gordon Show. And I went to Gordon J. Warner after Osbourne kidnapped and raped me and killed kids. And these are the people who run your largest news talk radio show in Detroit.
You also had number 57.
Yeah, Dianetics and the Church of Scientology has hidden me all my life with people like John Travolta and the people in Scientology. They make movies that mark me, and they mark every facet of my life. But me, Hugh Squire, who is the real owner of Bottom Line New York, and it's a worldwide publishing company, I never exist. And then on Detroit local radio, which Senator Graham's family owns, and that's Peter Graham down where Mar-Lago, where Trump lives. Graham Trucking in Michigan was the largest trucking company with Holloway and Messina. And Holloway and Messina and Peter Graham all know me. And they all know I was kidnapped as a child at 4 in 1957 by 5 governor.
So L. Ron
It's
Hubbard
untrue.
started Scientology, so it wouldn't be any big surprise to see any Hubbards providing disinformation.
No, no, not to me. And that's why I won't do any interviews with anybody named Hubbard. And they haven't asked me. They discredited me before they even pretended not to know me.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And it's like that for me in all media. Anderson Cooper. Anderson raped me at 4. Cooper raped my daughter at 7, 20 years later. And I've said this in other videos, Muir on NBC or CBS, his parents were with me as they disappeared in the Gulf in 1980s. And Jacques Cousteau found $5 billion in gold bullion under my shrimp boat that same afternoon. So all the main media, I'm H, and the Italian man that created HBO went to church with me and Mr. Hamilton and Grant and Joe Walsh of the Eagles, HBO, and they gave you the monkeys marking me, the local squire out cutting his lawn, and Valerie Alatello was my girlfriend, and then Sharon Collins became Sharon in Israel. And they marked me with all these things, HBO, MTV. I married Mary Westhouse. Her uncle was a Supreme Court justice. My uncle was a Supreme Court justice. And this is the biggest con America's ever gone through. It's a bigger con than the Civil War.
You had recording number 57 you wanted to do.
Okay.
Peter Fonda says in the second Westworld movie to Harry Croft.
And that became Laura Croft.
That his partner wants to interview him on TV. And this is Harry Croft of Dell OS, as I ran Shelby Service Center. Years later,
with Dell,
around 2000, the world got Laura Croft.
What kind of boost do you have?
And Laura Croft got her start because of the Westworld movies that marked me.
You got to stay on top of it.
Tony Toko
on Jack Ruby's property.
Tony Toko and Miller worked for me with Dell. And in the movie, it's Dell OS, and I'm Squire. And these movies from Fonda, Hanoi Jane and her brother Peter marked me from day one. The very first movies they made marked my life. And they've hidden my truth of the Oakland County child killing with L. Brooks Patterson and his task force. They gave you Dr. Nasser in 2016 when I went back and tried to make more police reports out about the Oakland County child killings and the kids thrown on my properties as the FBI detained me for Jimmy Hoffa's murder in my Troy, Michigan driveway on Isabel as the Isabella Gardner Museum was robbed. And nowadays they tell you the museum wasn't robbed until 10 years later, and they changed the dates and everything. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. When or not tomorrow, but on the full moon in the big reveal, I'll mention that again if you remind me. Make a note to remind me of the CIA and FBI and police changing dates of events. They change locations, dates, and names anytime they want.
Okay, now we have, well, you've given them a ton of stuff today, Hugh. Anybody that has the brains to sit down and listen to what you just said for this last hour and put these pieces together, go through it slow, is going to understand that you're telling the truth. There's so much stuff here, and it's all centered around a Detroit scam, around pedophile groups, around governors, and around a whole lot of famous people that people can understand this if they want to understand it, if they want to see the con that's going on. And I get tired of lazy people who come to me and say they don't understand it, but they haven't put even 3 minutes of time into understanding it, but they already know that what you're saying is wrong. I mean, come on. You know, I'm so sick of this kind of attitude that people have where they don't put any effort into trying to understand
Yeah,
this stuff. And I'm sick
there's
and
no
tired.
lie in anything I'm saying, and I have documents to prove every word. And Hollywood movies are proof of what I'm saying is truth. I'm in every movie.
Every freaking movie out there. And
Uh, you just had 2 murders today. You had a policeman murdered in Arkansas related to me. And you had a murder in Chicago where I always played at the Veterans Hospital there as Hanoi Jane
I mean, you were
protested against the Vietnam
you
War.
were talking a little bit ago about the Osbournes and how Marie Osbourne runs the radio station, and then you know you have the singer Osbourne. You know the
You
Osbourne.
just had the emo rapper Juice. He was just murdered at Chicago airport. They told you it was a seizure. Well, my son has seizures. Who isn't really my son? He's the Oakland County policeman's son, Mr. Al Akers, who was supposed to be protecting me, but he was screwing my wife behind my back like Biden's family does to my oldest brother. And then another Bradley, the security at Ford's, my deceased brother from Vietnam. He actually was doing the same thing with that brother's wife and took my brother's land and his kid and his wife from him as my brother died in Oakland County.
Yeah, well,
And
people
on
can
and
make
on
these.
and on.
Yeah, people can make these connections for themselves because I was able to connect some of them. Like when you know the Osbournes and the Wallace family that you had mentioned were families of the
And
pedophile
then you
governor.
had the girl from India who's actually a Pakistani in California. She's a lawyer and she was prosecutor in California and earned her degree using my stolen trademark, using my family's name Harris and pretending to be a Harris family member to be your president. And none of these things are coincidence.
Right.
Everybody running to be president is part of my kidnap and rape in 1957 by 5 governors, including Peter Buttigieg. This is just unbelievable, the biggest con, and there's a con behind all of this.
I'll be really looking.
And I'm gonna expose the whole con, whether or not people believe it, or care to believe it, or even care about the con. I'm going to expose it, and
This is
it's
my point,
100%
Hugh, and this is what I'm
true.
trying to say is that people can make these connections just like I was able to, and I constantly make these connections with what you're saying, like the Osbourne family and the Wallace family, 2 families of rapists back from '57, and you had the Wizard of Oz with
No, well, I
Osbourne.
have the Osbourne running news talk radio for Senator Graham's family back in Detroit, hiding my truth of Hoffa and the
And
Oakland County child killings. At the same time, Osbourne has just scheduled a whole bunch of musical performances out here on the West Coast where I live now.
yeah,
So they hit me no matter where I live. In Tennessee, they stole all my Kennedy letters and broke into my house numerous times, the Osbourne family, as they pretended to be a church and baptized me and murdered my wife.
and I'm trying to
So
say
the
how
Osbourne family attacks me no matter what state I live in.
yeah.
And they murdered Sarah Heath Palin's family.
And this is
on
why
the
you keep
Manning
hearing
Ranch.
the name Oz and Osbourne all over movies for the last 50, 60 years.
And they've got this country under their thumb. They run the FBI. L. Brooks Patterson helped them hide their family, killing all those little kids in Oakland County. And they're great military people who are so nice and love you all.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell you truth in the news.
Right.
I don't think so. And
Look
me,
how many people
the guy that is the truth, I don't exist, as everybody in the country uses my stolen trademark, bottom line, including all the attorneys and all the judges. And the presidents, they all use my stolen trademark, bottom line, and they appoint my neighbors who stole it, people like Barr and Bolton and Stone, to be your government servants in the White House as government servants murder my family members on the Manning Ranch, 4 of them. And then they call dismembered, raped, murdered women, 4 of them, natural causes, missing legs, missing ears, missing teeth. And I'm tired of this, and that's why I'm making these. And I am the real truth, and they're really trying to kill me. They fed me bleach. I don't know if they fed it to me in my water supply or my food. I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm bleeding. I'm wearing a tampon because I'm bleeding so bad.
Yeah, and they did it. They did
and
it.
I
on
have
the
white stool for the past 3 days as I get a letter
John-
addressed to John White at
when
my home.
bleach equals 22 and 131, John White equals 131, and bleach, which equals also 22 there, and there's 22 days left in the year. Obviously, they're using coded information to do this.
Hopefully I make it to Wednesday to tell you the real con and finish this truth about all of your government servants and the rape of a little kid and how they're all hiding. They're passing the ball back and forth with controlled disinformation from people like Alex Jones, Julian Assange, Jesse Ventura, and the White House and CBS.
I was thinking about that name Ventura. I was thinking about that name Ventura. I know a Venturi is something that is kind of like a funnel that funnel and then speeds something up. You know.
Wow, Ventura is a real big county here in California.
Think about
I live here by Deschutes County, and my daughter is Mrs. Deschutes, and there's a whole story in that. Her mother wanted to abort her, and I wouldn't let her. And now my daughter is Miss Deschutes, and there's a Deschutes County in Oregon. That's not coincidence.
Right. Well, the Venturi takes a lot of stuff and funnels it into one little direction, and that's what disinformation is.
Yeah, well, that's what Ventura did. And after using Bottom Line, my stolen trademark, he got all his paychecks from my stolen trademark. He was put on Slurpee cups as I was sucking on male penises in Osbourne's basement, and he became governor of Minnesota. I mean, think about it. Oh, and he's in the Navy like Kennedy.
Or your wife.
Oh, there's part of the con.
Unbelievable.
Only he wasn't World War II. He was the Navy SEALs trained by the World War II Navy to fight in Korea. And then he sued a Vietnam vet's or a Middle East vet's widow. And well, Jesse, come sue me. Yeah. You're a treasonous bastard who helped hide the truth of a raped child for 66 years, and you're hiding the truth of Kennedy and Hoffa instead of reporting the truth on your TV and radio station.
Think about these names that you keep saying were the families of the rapists, okay? And they're still all over the media today. Anderson, Wallace, Osbourne. You see these names over and over again. Anderson Cooper, you know, the Osbourne on the radio. You have Wallace.
I mentioned them all by name. And the best they can do is keep trying to poison me, Greg.
Donnell.
They hit me with sledgehammers, shoot me, stab me with knives, poison me over and over. But I'm not in any courtroom. Gee, that speaks volumes because I have real documents that implicate all of them in real truth.
Right.
Including the Barr family.
This is stuff anybody can see if they choose to see it. So I'm just going to leave it at that, Hugh. We've been at it for over an hour, and I want people to really concentrate on this stuff. Get ready for the next big video where the big con is going to be revealed. The next video we make.
It all has to do with money, Greg.
Okay. Well, let's just cut it off here.
Take care.
All right.